Welcome to Mad Props. I am your host, Chris Schnabel, and today we have Catherine Cavadini. She is the voice of Blossom, along with many other voices out there. She is awesome. I actually had the pleasure of meeting her in person when I went out to Dallas to see Rob and Carlos and all these other voice actors that were out in Dallas at the time. She actually happened to be there as well. We got to meet in person. We got to talking, and then she came on, and she was fantastic. Cannot wait for you guys to see it. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Also subscribe wherever else you get your podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever. Make sure you subscribe to that YouTube because the Comic Palooza that we just went to, we're going to have a follow camera where I'm mic'd up going. We're going to have the panel coming out soon and a bunch of other stuff. So it's not just going to be the podcast you're going to want to see. Go ahead and check out Mad Props Pod on YouTube to see all that kind of stuff. You can also follow along with me, but I tag myself and everything on social media, so you can find it there. At Mad Props Pod, anywhere on social media, you're going to find it there. Also, we have a Discord server. We made a Discord server. It's brand new. Go to the description. You can find it right now. Come through, come say hi, come have conversations. You can find, we're going to talk sketching up in a second. You can find sketching up there, but mostly you can find Mad Props there. Upcoming guests will be announced there in an upcoming guest panel. You can get updates on social media. You can get updates on when episodes drop. We're going to start doing stuff on YouTube. That will go straight to the Discord as well, so you can find it there. Listener questions will be there. So we have someone really cool you've always wanted to ask a question for. Boom, right there in the Discord. That's where you're going to start asking. So find the Discord. Link is in the description. Go there now. Before we get started today, or actually as we get started today, we are going to do a little show and tell. I have another podcast called Sketching Up. So coming in right now, as you're watching, is Matt, my co-host. Whoa. He came on to join me on the beginning of this so we can kind of talk some cartoons, something that we do on Sketching Up. So if you enjoy cartoons, go listen to Sketching Up at Sketching Up Podcast. So do you want to tell the listeners that don't know maybe a little bit about Sketching Up?
Yeah, man. It's a fun little thing that you brought me onto. We get to talk about cartoons through the heyday of Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. We also talk about movies and comic books and TV shows when I can get Chris to watch a TV show so we can talk about it. But he loves to just really get into it, and we both just like to shoot our shot. I mean, our last episode just came out. We talked about AI and Stan Lee.
Yeah, Stan Lee AI specifically.
Yeah, taking his likeness and his voice, and it's just horrible and depressing. But we had a lot of fun talking about it. So it's a good listen. Go ahead and listen to that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast streaming.
Spotify and Apple,
yeah,
Good Pods,
iHeartRadio.
What's the one? Beaker or something like that.
Oh, Beaker, yeah.
Remember we were talking like, oh, we have a ton of listens on. We don't even know what it is.
I have no idea what it is.
Deezer or something like that. Whatever.
Never.
I think Deezer is the production company for Bill Lawrence. Actually, I don't think that's isn't it? Isn't it Deezer? It doesn't matter. Who cares?
Yeah.
But today we're going to talk about underrated Cartoon Network shows for the beginning of this podcast. So we both have like a list here. I'm going to let you start because you're the guest, so you could start. Talk about the show a little bit and maybe talk about like why you liked it. We're just going to talk about underrated shows. So go ahead.
Yeah. So my first show is Whatever Happened to Robot Jones.
Yes.
I don't know. That's like it's a deep cut. It's a deep cut.
It is. It's really only known for the thing we talked about off air of like the pilot was an actual robot. And then it didn't test well, so they put somebody as Robot Jones.
Yeah, so Robot Jones was always the robot, but then they just kind of like it was the first episode was just about him, but then the next they wrote in other characters like he's a brother of someone.
No. That's not what I'm saying. The pilot, the voice was a robot. It was a computerized
voice. Oh, yeah, and then he has a kid's voice.
And now he's a kid because it tested so poorly. They're like, the show is great, but the voice is terrible. So they then brought in a voice actor to. It's almost the first type of AI taking over voice jobs with Robot Jones, but they got rid of that. So just taking jobs.
But yeah, no, I thought it was like a really cool concept. I enjoyed it. I remember it came on like right after Teen Titans at the time. So I just started watching it right after that Saturday mornings. And it was like one of those, you're at that age and it's like a robot in high school and you're not in high school yet. So you just want to watch something that's like in a high school and like the
You
hijinks,
want to
something could
compare.
happen.
You want to compare. You want to feel what it's going to be like. So Robot Jones, that's your first one. So I have one.
My first one.
I don't even know if you've watched it or not, and I don't remember much of it. There's two things I remember from this. Okay, one is a song that was in it, and the other one is that what was it? Gerald Way. Who's My Chemical Romance? Gerald Way or Gennard Way or something like that.
He's from Jersey.
I should know it as well. I just know his last name is Way because I only know that part of it, and I can kind of vision his name is because he wrote Umbrella Academy as well.
Yep.
So like I can kind of envision his name. I probably should have looked it up before this, but I saw this and I was like, oh yeah, this is the guy. Sheep in the Big City. Do you remember that show at all?
I saw that come up on a list, and I do not remember it whatsoever. Like that's one that just does not come out of the memory banks.
So there was a song that was like, I don't know why my voice is so high. I that's all I remember from the show. And I don't even remember where it comes from, but I know it's from that show. So that means I've watched it because I know something from the show. And that little song, that little tune pops into my head every now and again. I'm like, it's from a show I barely even remember. But
yeah,
I had to put it on the underrated list because played for a couple years and it kept in my head.
It is, yeah. It was a catchy enough tune to keep in your head.
It's still there. It's still there, and I feel like I should look that up just to see it.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, most of these I feel like I didn't watch, but I know I did.
Yeah. That's how I was when I went through it, and I was like, oh, I don't know. No, I definitely watched this. I remember things. They're coming back. The nostalgia is flowing.
I'm saying, like, I don't remember much, but I remember that song. So that means I must have watched it because I know that song's from it. I know for a fact that song's from it, but I don't remember anything else. All right, what do you got for your next show?
My next show is Megas XLR, where it was a hot rod car that was also a huge mech machine. It had flames on it. Like it was a huge robot. It was like huge. Robot.
I thought you said neck machine. I was like, what the hell is a neck machine?
Like a mech machine. That's my anime coming out. Yeah, that's my anime coming out. But I remember this, and it's like it's about a dude who's like a mechanic, and he's like huge into video games, and all of a sudden like huge monsters start. Like Godzilla type monsters start coming after the city, and he builds this huge robot, but at the top of it, he drives it like his car. So his car is like the gear shifts and but like he parks his car on top of it, and then it comes up, and it's just like this whole machine. And he uses the steering wheel and the gear shifters to like move the arms and the legs and everything.
I'm telling you right now, I've never even heard of this. I didn't even see this on any lists I looked at.
I can't believe it. This is insane. Oh my God. And on IMDb, it had an 8.1 out of 10.
I feel like most of these are going to be pretty solid on IMDb. I didn't look. I don't think we looked at really any of the. Maybe you did. I didn't look at any of them. I feel like they're all going to be pretty 7s and up from here, but like they're underrated because they were either short lived or. And I'll bring up one. It wasn't going to be my next one, but I will bring it up. For this reason, anything from like the end of that golden era where Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd n Eddy, that era until the Adventure Time regular show, Steven Universes, like which are in the 2010s, that like 10 years in between, there's a lot of shows that were solid that just nobody remembers, didn't really make it. Those kids from the 90s stopped watching, and then like I said, they did a lot of stuff in between there too, like tried to do like real stuff, which was just not a smart idea because it's Cartoon Network.
Yeah, we don't need real.
Do you remember CN Real? And it was hosted by, or there was a show, or maybe the whole thing. I don't remember which one was hosted by. Was it Andrew WK? You know who Andrew WK is?
Yeah,
the DJ. He was like the host, or he hosted one of the shows, or something like that. I think it was like Build Destroy was one of them.
Yes,
and he was like the host of it. That could almost just be part of this.
Yeah.
They all
I looked it up. I
Yeah,
looked it
go
up,
ahead.
and the first YouTube video that's on Google is Cartoon Network's failed live show.
Because the shows were just like, it's not. I don't even think that they were bad. I don't think they were bad shows by any means. I don't
No, but
remember.
just
They could
didn't
have been
fit.
terrible, but it doesn't fit because it's Cartoon Network, and CN Real literally stands for Cartoon Network Real. The
Yeah.
only one, and I think the reason they went into this is because they had a show, and I'm going to let you research it. Well, I'll
Okay.
explain what it is. You can research it. Tell us the name because I don't remember the name, but it was inside someone's head or outside someone's head, and it was live action, but this kid has to have like brain surgery, and it gets replaced with the like, he's not Walt Disney, but he's like the Walt Disney of that world, and he sees all the characters around him inside Nathan's head, or I can't remember what it is. Just look up Cartoon Network live action / cartoon movie. It was a movie, I'm pretty sure, and then tell us the name of it. But that
Okay.
was that was the premise of it. It was the live action, and he gets like brain surgery or something like that. And then when he gets the brain surgery, he starts seeing all the characters this guy created around him, and they're always interacting with him and stuff. I think that's what kind of led into the CN Real era, because that specific movie was very successful. Did you find the name of it by
I'm
chance?
trying to find it right now.
I
Yeah, it was
can't.
Andrew
It's
WK, the rock
no.
musician.
Andrew
It
WK
was
is not in it. Andrew
oh,
WK is not in this. Let me see if I could find. God, what the heck is it called? I was gonna say if you just look up live action.
is it reanimated?
Yeah, maybe it is reanimated. Maybe that is what it's called. Um, Cartoon Network
Yeah.
movie.
Part live action, part animal story about a boy who, after an awful amusement park accident, gets his brain transplanted and allows him to see cartoons
There,
characters
yeah,
in real
that's it.
life.
Reanimated. I
Yeah.
thought it was like inside someone's head or something like that. I don't know why. But yeah, reanimated. That's the movie. And I think if I remember correctly, that's what kind of led to all this live action stuff, because that movie was pretty successful on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, probably pretty successful Cartoon Network, but IMDb has a rating of it of 2.9.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a good movie or not, but like the whatever the rating they had at the time, because it was, why it was probably so successful, because it was so different. And
Yeah,
then like,
yeah.
oh, people want different, but that's not really what they want. I we had 5 each for these. I'm gonna throw out one more to you. I have a couple more
Okay.
here, but I'm gonna throw out one more to you because it is probably the most underrated Cartoon Network show of all time, because it was a
Which one?
banger of a show. Class of 3000.
Class of 3000.
And
Yep, I had
by
that on my
you saying
list.
that, I was gonna say, I
I
don't know
had
if
it
you
on
even
my
heard of it or
list.
not. It was
Yep, I
Andre
had it on my
3000's
list.
show. Had
Yep,
awesome music, awesome things.
great music.
It was very like, I can literally just go through. I had Camp Laszlo on there. Carlos Alazraqui plays Laszlo. That's why I wanted to put it on there. I had Two
Yep.
Stupid Dogs. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yep, I remember that one.
Yeah, I had
Uh,
that one. I had Crypto the Super Dog.
yep, that's a
That was
good
a good
one.
one. Has an awesome theme song as well. I'm just putting those out there because the one I really want to talk about is Class of 3000, because that one like doesn't even get, you don't even see it on the lists of what are the most
No,
underrated. It kind of like, they act like it never existed.
I know. It was just so weird. It had like Phil Lamar in it.
Yeah,
And
it
Andre
had Andre
3000.
3000 in it.
Yeah.
It was Andre
And
3000's show. That's why
it
it's called
had
Class of 3000.
it had Tom Kenny in it, who's the voice of SpongeBob.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are huge voice actors on this bad boy.
Yeah, it was like a big time. Like, a lot went into this show, and the artistry of the show was much different from stuff coming out at that time. It
Oh,
was
for
like
sure.
way different than what now you might see it a lot more, but like just the whole thing was much different. Um, but yeah, this whole
Oh,
idea sparked, and you could say a couple years ago, this whole idea sparked because we were talking about the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy.
yeah,
And I think it's super underrated. I was
I
actually
agree with
looking at
you.
some lists, and they seem to be like, there would be like the top 50 and it'd be number 50, or top 30 would be number 30. It was like always last, but it was
I don't know
on the
how.
top shows list. I don't either. That show is so unbelievably good. You could watch it today as an adult, and it's probably funnier than when you were a kid, by the
Yeah,
way.
because the jokes are more adult than you could
Way more adult. That should have been an Adult
like.
Swim show.
Yeah, I understand more of the jokes now than I did as a child. That's how you
Yeah.
know it's made for both.
There's one where I don't remember what the friend's name is.
Is it the kid with the
with the
glasses
yeah. I don't remember what
who's
his name
obsessed with
is.
Mandy?
He says he was talking and someone cuts him off and he literally goes like ass. I was saying like literally stops for a second
Yeah.
and then says it. I didn't want to lose my train of thought, but Gray Delisle, another Mad Props guest recently, plays Mandy. So there you go. There's a tie-in right there for that. That was
Yeah.
not why we brought up Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. We didn't. That wasn't even mentioned before. That's why I kind of lost my train of thought for a second. But she was just a
Yeah, it's
recent guest, so you go check that
I'm
one
pretty
out.
sure his name was Irwin.
Irwin, yeah. It's definitely
It's Irwin.
Irwin.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, that show is so good. Then there's the dude, who's like the superhero. He's like the super buff guy.
Yeah,
And then it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
and he's got the eye patch and everything. And yeah, that show's so good. And then I mean, most underrated character in any TV show ever is Fred Fredberger, who, if you're
Oh,
not into stupid comedy, like he's probably
that
the worst
is.
character of all time.
You probably get so
But
annoyed by him.
but Fred Fredberger is a legend of one.
So my other ones was my gym partner was a monkey.
Before you go, before you go into any of those, did any of them I say overlap with you? Did you have any of those?
The only one was Class of 3000.
Okay, continue.
Okay, so I have my gym partner's a monkey, and there's a monkey who's there's a kid who goes to an all animal school.
All animal school because his last name's Lion.
Yeah, and so they made the mistake of putting him in that school.
Put him in there. I don't remember what his first name is, but I do remember his last name's Lion, so they thought he was a lion.
Yeah, it's I think it's Adam Lion.
It sounds right. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just remember his last name's Lion, and then the rest of it's self-explanatory. Where his gym partner,
is
a monkey. That's his best friend,
and his best friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just get into hijinks, which is a lot of fun to watch.
Hijinks ensue.
So funny, we just went on a whole thing about Billy and Mandy, the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, because
I didn't say this one. Go ahead. I have it on my list. It was my backup.
Evo Con Carne.
Yeah, it was.
That was so
on the list.
good.
Yeah.
It is so good. Like the bear is so funny with the evil brain, who is like the head of everything. Like it's just so good.
The funny thing is, it became its own spinoff. But even after that, those two just like meshed so much. Like there's a whole episode where the general becomes Billy's like neighbor.
Yeah.
And I think it was after that show came out. Like it just they still just meshed together.
They still just meshed them together, and like that was such a good show. And then my last one was I was gonna put it on there because it's a little farther, I think.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hear it.
What like the 2010s and stuff. It's like is Symbiotic Titan. Do you remember that?
Never heard of it. Never even heard of it. Symbiotic Titan?
Yeah. So I saw this on a list and I immediately remembered because it's like this
Titan?
This alien machine that comes down and then he like makes himself look like a high school student. And like he becomes friends with people and like they save the world, but like he's still going through high school like trials and tribulations. And like when I read it, I was like, oh my God, I remember that because it was one episode of like he's like more of a nerd and there's a girl, like the popular girl, like falls in love with him. But he keeps having to run away because he needs to go save the world. And so like it's like the whole like superhero trope of like having a girlfriend that doesn't know your secret identity. So I love that one. That one was good to me.
Do people, and at the time, I'm telling you right now, when this was first coming out, people definitely did. Do people still find the Misadventures of Flapjack underrated, or has it? I know it's rised up a lot. It shouldn't go on any of these lists. But is it still one of those underrated shows, or do people respect it now because of the names that came out of it? Like, how do you feel on that one?
I think over time that became more popular. I think
if you remember, it definitely was not when it was first coming out. We weren't like growing up. I'm pretty sure that's like 2008, 9, 10-ish era. But I
Yeah.
mean, the people that came off of that show is the reason it like is so remembered now. Like JG
Yeah.
Quintal, I can really read off around. JG Quintal was the creative director for the first 2 seasons. Quintel, he's the creative regular show. Rebecca Sugar was on that. Ian Jones was on it. Alex Hirsch was on it. I was gonna read off names, but I couldn't find them, so now I'm going off the top of my head. um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like most everyone that was someone big in the dude that did Adventure Time was on it. What the heck is his name again? Whatever. Anyone that was anyone from like 2010 to 2018 was on this show. Like they were all a part of this show,
Yeah.
or someone that was on the show made the next person. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
like Darren Nefsey came somewhere out of this as well, and she creates Star Wars Force of Evil. And then someone else came out and like creates Amphibia. Like all these shows came out of this talent group, which is crazy.
Yeah. So the first episode for Flapjack came out in 2008.
Yeah, that's actually I think what I said. I think I said 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. It
Yeah,
only lasted
I
a couple
just
seasons too, maybe 2 or
yeah,
3
it
seasons.
only went till 2010.
So 3 seasons, 3 years at least.
Yeah,
That
3
does
years
not
at
mean
least.
3 seasons, but
Yeah.
3 years. So if you like this, if you like all this,
Yes.
catch it on Sketching Up, which comes out Fridays. We put them out on Fridays. You can also follow Sketching Up Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and Facebook. You can subscribe to Sketching Up Podcast on YouTube, or you can find Sketching Up wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever. We'll also link it in the bio here. So if you want to go catch Sketching Up, like we said, we just did an AI. Maybe we do another list like this. Maybe we do underrated Nickelodeons.
That's a good
maybe
one.
Maybe we do overrated shows, which we wouldn't do on this one, but we might do on, maybe we'll do overrated shows that people remember too fondly. I definitely have some that I can think of off the top of my head.
Right off the top of my head. I know
right off the top of my head, I have a couple of them. But Matt, thank you for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you coming in and talking Sketching Up with us a little bit. For everybody else, thank you for listening to that. Coming up next, Catherine Cavadini, Blossom and the Powerpuff Girls. I see how it all comes together.
All comes together.
Stay right
baby.
there. Roll the titles. This is Mad Props. Catherine, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining the podcast. We appreciate you being here. We actually, I was saying a little bit off air, we got to meet in person before the interview, which almost never happens for me. I don't, unless I already personally knew somebody, I almost never get to meet them before. So this is a rarity. This is a rarity of a guest.
I love that. That was so cool that I got to meet you. Yeah, at a little Comic-Con. So.
Yes, in Dallas. And
in Dallas? That was the first time I've been to Dallas.
So. Did you go out and enjoy it? I think we talked about like going out and doing something.
I didn't really have a lot of time. Yeah, I didn't really have time to. I would like to. I mean, definitely it's someplace I'd like to go back for sure. The people were so lovely and everybody was so nice and it was really cool. It was a fun experience.
It was a little bit outside of like downtown, if I remember right. It was like maybe 30 minutes outside
Irving?
of downtown.
Was it Irving?
Yeah, it was Irving. Yeah. It was a little bit outside downtown. I've never been to that place in Dallas. I've never been to Irving before.
It was really nice. It
was really nice. Yeah,
beautifully. There was like a lot of room for people to walk around, and
Yeah.
A lot of really nice vendors. I met some vendors, and I bought a couple things, which I never do.
Yeah,
but I
before I left, we saw each other. You were walking around going to all their vendors. I was like, oh hey.
Yeah. I met this husband whose wife had made these little purses, so I bought one for my daughter and I. But his son was autistic, and we talked about because I guess my daughter will be okay with me saying, but she's on the spectrum. You never know. But so she had a lot of, I guess you would say, speech therapy and different things. And it was a lot raising, a child that needed a lot of help. But she's doing great now. She's a a groomer at PetSmart, and she loves animals, and she's doing great, and she's got a baby now, so I'm a grandma. So anyway, so he and I ended up talking about all that, and I just said, don't let the diagnoses tell you who your kid is, because you know who your kid is better than anybody, and you never know. Like we were told the lights are never going to turn on for your kid, and like just really awful things, so and then my kid is doing great, so she's not a kid anymore, but anyway, so I was just saying that, and he was like, oh, my wife's here, so anyway, so it's interesting, the conversations you have and the people you meet there, it's actually very cool.
Yeah, you were one of, like, I think it was 6 upcoming or former guests of this show. I think I was telling you, like, we're not a voice acting show, but for some reason we've had a lot, like recently we just had a chunk of voice actors and actresses to come on. But
Right.
the community, not only with like that whole community is just like really amazing to be a part of. I'm very happy that we have all these voice actors and actresses, because just like being a part of that community and being able to meet all of you, like how amazing you are with the people that come up to your booths, and like how willing you are to do all the different voices, because you guys do them a million times a year. So like to continuously do them for every single person.
It took me a while to realize that really, Tara's like the queen, who does Bubbles on Powerpuff Girls, is like the queen of these things. And I've learned a lot from her, but she's so sweet. She takes so much time with everybody. But I finally just realized, they just want to hear the voice, just do the voice, because part of it, feels like, okay, tap dance monkey, but they're so happy. And then, I'm innately a very shy person, a very introverted person. So it's a very strange thing that I'm in this business, but and maybe voiceover goes with that, because most of the stuff I've done is off camera. So, so I kind of have to learn to, be a little more outgoing when I go to these things, but it's pretty easy, because I've even like had kids come up and even adults come up, and they start improvising with me, and it's really fun, like they're really, some of them are really good. I had one person come up, and they came in cosplay the next day. We had a nice interaction. This was at a different con, but we had this great interaction. We talked for a long time about voiceover acting and stuff like that, and then they came back dressed in cosplay as the Joker, and they just started speaking as the Joker and improvising it. I was like, you are really talented. You need to do this. Like, you're really good. I didn't even recognize that it was you from meeting you yesterday. Anyway, so we meet, so many cool people. Yeah, definitely.
And I talked with a couple of the people that were there about, because one of my favorite things when I get to see and meet all of you is kind of just hanging out and seeing the interactions that you guys have. And you do the photos, you do the autographs, you do all that stuff, but all anybody comes up for is like a recording of you saying something like, "Hi, say hi to my brother," or something like that. Like that is really what everybody wants.
A lot of times the people do want that. Yeah. And sometimes it's a little daunting, because you don't know anything about the person you're supposed to be. So I try to find information, like what's your sister like? What is she like? So, but it is fun.
Talking to ghosts at that point, if you don't know, who it is.
Right. We did one. It was hard to coordinate, even though Tara was right next to me, but one gentleman was really patient, because somehow I had to go do something, and then she had to do something. And anyway, we came back and we sang a little song and sang happy birthday to his sister, and he was so thrilled. So that's good. So it all works out in the end.
I mean, it's you are nostalgic for the voice, no matter what time periods, and you're nostalgic for the voice, and to actually have that in something you asked for. So hearing a name that or hearing your own name, it just like brings you to a different place. It's so amazing. So that's one of the things I really do enjoy watching. Y'all do your work, do your thing. And those conventions are great for that kind of thing, because everybody's in that same spot. Like I said, a lot of the people that are already there, but also it's a great place to meet a lot of different people. Although I will say, and I said this at my panel the other day, people that have podcasts, don't go up and ask somebody to be on your podcast while they're there. that's like the wrong way to do it. Do it the right way, figure out the
I've had
contacts.
people do that, and it's awkward, because you don't know anything about them, and
Yeah.
I think I told you I don't do a lot of these, and there is a good way to present yourself, which I was giving you a compliment earlier about how
Yeah, you can do
professional
it on
you
air.
are.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you're incredibly professional, and that stood out to me, and I went, okay, I'm going to do this, guys, because he's really together. Plus, when I met you, I was like, all of my impressions up to that point, it all went together, and I was like, okay, good. I'm glad. I'm excited to do this guy's podcast. So.
Whenever I have somebody on, we just did like the Comic Palooza panels and stuff, and a part of we were featured podcast at Comic Palooza. Part of that, we got a bunch of different interviews with all these different. There were a lot of authors and stuff like that, and I knew nothing about any of them. They gave them to me like the day before. They're like, "Here's some people you can interview tomorrow."
Right.
So I knew nothing about them, and there was one in particular that was like, you could tell a little on edge, like because they don't know who I am, they don't know anything about my podcast, and then, they were like, whatever, and I'm like, don't worry, I'm a professional talker. We don't know where it's gonna go, but I can talk. I could definitely talk. So it doesn't matter that we don't know anything. We're gonna have.
You have a background in journalism,
for like an hour,
right? You have
a little bit of a background in journalism. Yeah, I did
Yeah.
journalism for about one semester in college. I did want to be a writer. Like that was maybe not like books, but I wanted to do journalism and writing. My ultimate goal was to be in broadcasting. That's what put me in the spot to want to do a podcast.
But I mean, that's what I mean. That's your kind of your background and also your passion or your talent. So it shows. So
thank you. Yeah, this is like my favorite thing to do. Like it's not my day job. It's not paying the bills or anything like that. But this is my favorite thing to do because it does reach back to what my original wants were, which I always wanted to be on radio, even though radio was very much a dying medium at the time. It still kind of is. Like
right. I'm another generation, so I used to listen to the radio a lot.
Yeah,
back in the day.
The thing is with radio, like it used to be like localized stations and all that stuff, but now it's like you're listening to WMQZ Minnesota, and then it goes off the bump and it just plays some show from LA. Like there's only like 6 radio shows in the entire country anymore because there's no more localized radio. They're all owned by the same companies and stuff like that, and they just broadcast out of like 4 different cities and they just spread them around the country. So the person in LA, the person in Minnesota, and the person in Kansas are all listening to the same exact show.
Right.
Like that's why it was tough to break into it, because if you aren't really like strong going in, if you don't have really good demo tape, whatever it is, like it's going to be hard unless you're doing like voluntary public radio for years. It's a hard medium to break into, but then podcasting now, came along.
Yeah, isn't it? It's replaced by podcasting. I mean, everybody has a podcast now. I was like,
yes, everybody does have a podcast.
Who doesn't have one wants one, and the people are listening to nowadays are podcasters, and I think it's really awesome because I think on podcasts, you can, like you were saying, you like to listen to audio stuff, and you can do that in your car. You can do that anywhere and get a little more in-depth, information about something or somebody that you're interested in. So
yeah,
I think it's an awesome medium.
Especially these days where there's video podcasts, audio. A lot of big-time podcasts are not podcasts. They're just TV shows. They're online TV shows. They're basically like late night interviews without all of the structure to it, right? Like you can be a little more open. You can ask a little bit deeper. There's no FCC regulations or anything like that. So you can kind of have a little bit more of a real conversation. But that's why Conan left late night, right? Like he's like, I can go and start a podcast. I'm already known as somebody that's good with guests and stuff like that. And it's one of the more successful ones out there because he realized the medium was changing. And he was like, I could just go out and have real conversations with people and people are going to go listen. So some of them, the big produced ones are like that. And then there's other ones that are very much like a podcast. It's an audio, not really video, talking about topics. And like you said, getting a more in-depth look at things rather than just a talk show, or some of them are almost equivalent to like an audiobook or something like that, where it's a very story driven thing. But they're a great medium. They really are.
Right. Yeah, I've done a lot of like those audio books and kind of audio dramas. They're a lot of fun. That end up they're just on a podcast, for
Yeah.
Audible or something like that. And the cool thing about that is that they get some big stars on it sometimes, and they're kind of really cool, like that might be something taking place in the 50s, or something that they're. And so for us, we're doing like the smaller roles. So we're doing multiple roles. And then we're also doing background stuff, like
Yeah.
background improving, for the background of it. So it's kind of a fun thing to do. But there's no picture. So, it's all in your
It's all
head.
about it's all about the voice. You gotta
Yeah.
paint the picture with the voice. That's why I think it's funny that big movies. Now, there's a topic that's kind of in the same direction, but a whole other direction. But
Yeah.
big movies hire big actors for voice roles. And voice acting, there's an art to it. It's not just a voice, but also if you look at people like your IMDb or anyone that has like voice acting as a career, you don't just have one role on a show. You have like 10 different roles because you're playing this background character, you're playing this one-time character, you're playing this one. When you have a big star, they just play the one character. You're paying more money for the one character. It is one of those things.
Some of them actually are like, look at Mark Hamill, so, some of them are really amazing, and they can do, it is acting. It's basically voice acting, and the acting part is the most important thing. I think even in when I started out, it was in the late 70s. I got out of high school and immediately started working in voiceover and doing on-camera commercials and little things like that. And you didn't tell people that you did voiceover jobs because it wasn't respected like it is now. So I never even told anybody. I was on a couple series back in my early 20s, and nobody knew because, you were just like, you didn't want, it wasn't considered acting, but now it's so great because it's so respected. And like you go to places like Japan and people are like revered who do voiceover. And there's such a high respect for it. But it also has changed into a lot of celebrities, because a lot of time they want to sell movies because it is a medium of money making.
Names on the poster. Yeah,
right.
Names
So
on the poster.
they need somebody who is going to draw people in. So there are a lot of them are actually quite good at it, and then I remember, when we were negotiating like for SAG and negotiating for an extra, because usually you get an extra bump for your second and third voice, you get a little more money, instead of just for the one voice. So I remember Rob Paulson saying something like, well, if we charge too much, then all of the people who actually have the skill of doing a lot of voices are going to be out of work, So it's an interesting thing, but I think there are, when I go, on a job and maybe do a guest spot, I might be doing 2 or 3 small roles, and then there's stars doing some of the bigger roles, so there is usually that. And it's usually, I think it's changed a little bit, but like with Powerpuff Girls, we had quite a few women on the cast, but a lot of times you go and it's almost all guys and
Yeah.
So I'm glad that that's been changing slowly, and there's more women, casts, and more, women representation. So.
Yeah, the funny thing is with the animation, especially in like the late 90s, early 2000s, it would be all men and then but you'd be playing the main character that's like a teenage boy or something like that, because they have such the high pitch that the girl's actually playing the guy and not the girl that's on in the show. It's kind of funny how that works out.
Unless you have like somebody like D. Bradley Baker or somebody who can
can
do that voice.
Do whatever voice you want him to do, because he's just extremely uber talented. But
he's so great. Yeah.
When you're growing up and you're like going through all the different like teenage or preteen boys from cartoons, and you see it's like Tara Strong or Nancy Cartwright or like all those people.
And that's because they figured at that time, well, their voice the little boy's voice is going to change. So, if a woman can do it, then we have the consistency and we can do like 60 episodes, or, as the years progress, we can have the character. But then that's even changed now because they really want authenticity. So they're like, no, we only want a real kid. So things have changed a lot. But, as I've gotten older, when I first started, I did kids and I did teens. And that's mostly what I did because my voice just had a very young sound and a very kind of interesting sound at times, I guess. So, and I got lucky that I got hired and stuff like that. And I sang. I got to sing in movies like Fievel Goes West, American Tail. And I did a little movie called My Little Ponies was one of my first movies I ever did, where we sang and stuff. So, that was always great. But now the great thing about as you age in this business, you can do all sorts of other characters and voiceover too. You're not limited by what you look like. So it's been more and more fun for me because I can do characters and, character acting and, characters that I wouldn't have gotten hired when I was younger because they would have thought, oh no, nobody's going to believe her as that character. So,
So going back 2 answers ago, you said you started in the late 70s. You were doing on screen and you were doing voice acting. So, and you said you started early. What made you make that decision to get into it? Were you trying to do acting and then voice acting kind of fell into it? Were you always kind of like, whatever role I can get, I want to do?
When I started, I was going to be a Broadway star. That was my goal. I was a singer and not a very good dancer, but also an actor. So, I did a lot of musicals at the time and some equity musicals and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I started. And then I ended up getting a manager I was taking an acting class and I ended up getting a manager and he got me an on-camera agent. And so I started doing on-camera commercials and stuff like that. And then at that agency, I didn't really know about voiceovers, that could be something that would be a living, that I would eventually, that would be my career. So I didn't pursue it, but I literally was walking down the hall at Don Schwartz agency where I was with them on camera. And this guy named Steve Tischerman, they just brought him in to be the voiceover agent. And so he kind of said, hey, come here and make this tape with me. And so I was like, okay, sure. And so I read some stuff and he taped it. And then the next week he said, hey, I got a job for you. And I'm like, what do you mean you have a job for me? He goes, well, I made a little demo out of the stuff you recorded for me and you have a job. So I went and it was to play a teenager, on a commercial. And so then I just started getting known for that, for doing teenagers and kid voices. And so it kind of just started catapulting from that. And people, once you kind of got known by certain people, they're like, oh, she can do a kid voice, or she can do. So I started, booking more and more things. So I did a little series called Kid Video at the very beginning, which is a very old series, and played a little fairy that had this very tiny little voice, and then, started guesting on different things. And so things kind of moved from there.
And then when does that build to Powerpuff Girls, which is a role that a lot of, like, I knew you from that role and a lot of people know you from that role.
Right. Well, that Powerpuff Girls, I remember it was before I got pregnant with my daughter. So 20 some odd years ago. So that was actually, we auditioned at Hanna-Barbera right before Hanna-Barbera closed. So that's when we actually went in to audition for things. So I remember going there and kind of all of the usual suspects. Nancy Cartwright everybody was reading for the different roles. And I just really connected because at that time I really loved Jackie Chan films, and I was really into martial arts. I was taking Taekwondo, and I was, I've always had a fascination for martial arts. So I was like, oh my God, she's like this little kid that, is kicking ass. they're actually, get to do the fighting noises and stuff like that, so, and I was like, I just get her, like, she's smart, she's kind of, intellectual, so, I remember going in and seeing Craig, who was so young at the time, Craig McCracken,
He's 24 when he came up with the concept, wasn't he?
I think he was younger. He seemed younger.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think I did see something where somebody said he was 24, but I'm like, I think he was even younger when I met him, because we did this pilot, and it was originally going to be called the Whoop-Ass Girls. So, so we did that at Hanna-Barbera, and then my agent called me maybe a year later and said, "Hey, you remember that little pilot you did?" And I'm like, "The one that was like about meat?" Because it was all about like fuzzy lumpkins, and we were throwing meat and all this stuff. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that it was a quirky little thing." I'm like, "That's so cool." And then it just, we started working, and it was such a great cast. Like the chemistry between everybody and the girls. It was a very special, amazing time, because we first started doing it at a studio called Salami Studios, even though it was under Cartoon Network's umbrella, but I don't think they had a studio open yet. So then we moved to Cartoon Network when they built their studio there. So during that time, there was all these great shows, all these great Cartoon Network shows. And people would do little guest spots on the different, like we did a little guest spot on Johnny Bravo, and, there'd be, there was Dexter's Lab was going on, and Gendy I'm going to say his name wrong. Gendy, you guys could look up how to say his last name, was also working on our show, because he and Craig were really good friends. And so, it was like just a lot of crossover and just a lot of really cool people working and writing. We had such great writers on our shows. And that back then, I just did a Comic-Con, maybe it was the one that you were at, maybe not. But where all the three Eds were there, Ed, and Eddie.
Yep. Yes,
and,
Matt Hill is a guest of the show, so I went up and I got to meet all of them
They're
as well.
They're so cute. They're so adorable. And the fans love them.
Yes, they do.
Anyhow, they were reminding me, because we did a little panel with all the Cartoon Network people there. Kenny Milo was there from Dexter's. And they were saying, oh, yeah, they used to send us this big, thick, huge script, with all of the drawings in it, so we'd have that script, sent to our house. I mean, they don't do anything like this anymore. You don't even get the script ahead of time now, but which was cool, because there were a lot of things, where the character would be like, ah, and you'd be like, how long am I yelling? And what am I doing? Is she falling? What's happening? So we would get these huge scripts, we used to joke with E.G. because we're like, did you even read the script? And she's like, no, my kids, I gave it to them and they were coloring on it. But she's amazing. Like, she doesn't even need to read a script because she's so brilliant. But anyway, so it was just, it was a whole other time where there was so much creativity going on. And I think, because we recorded together, I think that's part of what why it was so good, besides the fact that you also had Craig's amazing, drawings and like the characters that he created and the style of the show. I think a couple of years ago, I went back and watched I was like, oh my God, I totally see, like, I didn't get it at the time. Like, we were kind of just in it. And I remember Rob Paulson, who also, those guys always go to all the Comic-Cons, him, Jess, and Cam and all that. And oh God, I'm forgetting, Townsend, so they all do a lot of Comic-Cons together as the Turtles. And he was like, how is it? How are you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just like, it's day to day. I'm just like glad to be doing it. But I didn't really have a sense of how big it was going to become at the time. I think he might have, but, and other people might have. But until I remember one day I was driving down Victory Boulevard and saw like some piñatas of our characters. I was like, okay, I guess we're kind of in the mainstream, So, it was just, it was a very special time. And all of us too, we had all of our kids during that time. And so there was a lot of a bonding, because of that. And that's, it's a lot.
With the conventions, we had Tab Murphy on once. He wrote Atlantis and Hunchback of Notre Dame and a bunch of those types of movies. And that was exactly what he said. So he didn't really go to conventions until I think right before 2020, he was saying, or somewhere around that time. But he's like, all I've known my whole life is I wrote Disney flops. And then I would go to these events, or I think he said the first time he realized it is there was this Facebook group that he got invited to that had like hundreds of thousands of followers in it that loved the movie Atlantis. Then he would go to these conventions and all these people would go up and tell him how much the movie meant. And it's when I wrote it back in 1998 or whatever, like you just don't know. You just kind of put it out there and you hope it does well. And then you really only know based on box office. Other than that, you don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, even when we do stuff now, we don't know. We don't even know like the name of the project anymore. Like they don't even like I'll be working on a game and I always kind of have trained my agent like if I can get the script ahead of time, I'm the kind of actor that I like to read it all. I like to absorb it. I like to think about it. But I don't get that luxury anymore for a lot of shows, especially games because they're so hush hush and they don't want people to steal or release anything about the game. But, like you're just, you're really relying on the director because games pretty much it's just you and, you're never working with other people. Although I did a game not too long ago called A Quiet Place, The Road Ahead, where I played this character called Laura Edwards. And we actually got to work as an ensemble, which was so amazing. And there was, it was a kind of very dramatic, story-driven script parts. So we were all working off of each other, and that was such a great experience. I always prefer that. I've also done games like Redfall. I did that game, a role called named Anna Creelman on that role, that game, and that director actually read me in, which was awesome. Like that he offered to do that, but normally it's a lot of self-generated, you're self-generating. You're just in a dark room, self-generating all your images and, what you think's going on. And then if you're really confused, you're like, what's happening here? And so they lead you into the right response, but you usually give like a couple different versions of what you think could believably be. And sometimes they'll just throw you characters at the last minute. So you kind of have to be on your toes, a lot, but it's fun.
Are most of these now done in your home studio? Like, are you not really going out and reading anymore?
No. And I mean, we do audition pretty much always at home now, which can be good and can be bad. I miss the interaction with the casting director who always has more information. I try not to ask questions, but occasionally I will ask my agent, like, can you ask them this? And then, it's okay. On the other hand, like when you go in to read at your agent's office in the old days, like they'd rush you through. So you're like, you'd leave, you go, oh shoot, I should have done this. So now like you can self-direct. You have a little more time to kind of ruminate about it, the character and stuff like that. And so, yeah. And during COVID, I thought it was going to all go to home studio stuff because we worked a ton. There was a lot of voiceover work during COVID times, so for those couple of years, I was working so much in my home studio and it was awesome. I had my little dogs over there, have lunch at home, so don't have to deal with the LA traffic, but now it's pretty rare that they really want you to come in. And I love being, some of the stuff that I do a lot of ADR and looping. So that is a lot of improv as you're watching the huge screen, and you're supplying sweetening scenes or sometimes you're replacing a voice or you're adding some lines that are off camera or that maybe from someone not seen. So it's nice to be in the energy of everybody. But so there's good things and bad things about both things. But yeah, they want us, a lot of the auditions now say LA talent only. They want you to be in LA, they want you to, only if they're willing to come to the studio, so, yeah, unfortunately not as much, but I have done a couple because I got COVID like when I was supposed to do A Quiet Place for the first record. I recorded at home, and we had to like set up this. It was complicated. They had this whole setup, where they wanted our iPhones to be recording our facial expressions, and they were putting it through some kind
So
of
they can generate it.
yeah, some kind of app. And the other, like, I've been working on another game that's coming out this year. Can't talk about it yet, but I got to wear the headset,
Oh, that's really
and that was
cool.
in studio. So I wasn't full, like, full body, doing with all that in the suit, but
Yeah.
but the headset. So, which is kind of cool because we are, we're acting. So,
Yeah.
and then they can kind of, generate from your facial expressions, the character. So that's
No,
kind of fun.
that's really cool because, yeah, like you're saying, like you're acting. Now you have to like, actually act, like the facial expressions matter, the way you say it matters, and not that it doesn't when you're like
But
voice
we
acting.
do anyway. I mean,
Yeah, you usually do.
if you watch somebody like Tom Kenny or any people, first of all, people are like, oh, you can just be in your pajamas, you can just be laying down, chill. Like, no, the really good actors are like standing up. They're using their whole body. They're like just they're. I like to play this thing of Hugh Jackman doing his own ADR for Wolverine, and you see him, and he's like, and he's like, he's doing it, and that's how we do it as voice actors. We are physicalizing it. We're acting it out as if we're playing on camera, but you're not going to see us, and,
Yeah.
and in a ways, but you also have to think like a voiceover actor. Like you have to think like okay, they're not going to see my facial expression, but how can I make a sound that creates the emotion of what that is, so that's the only difference, I would say.
That's what I was that you conveyed what I was trying to say way better than I was going to.
No.
Like you can't like distort to make a sound because you have to be conscious of what your face is actually doing, because they're going to take that face recognition and they're going to make it into the game. So
Yeah.
like you have to, I'm saying you have to act, like you can't like Tom Kenny couldn't hit his throat laughing because it would come up in the scan and
Oh,
stuff
they probably
like
would just get rid of that. But but no, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It makes a difference. Like you hear it. If somebody's just phoning it in, because I teach too. I teach a workshop once a year, like a 6-week workshop for actors who want to create like get more into voiceover acting, or maybe work on their repertoire, or maybe work towards getting a demo together. So I do this workshop once a year, and I also coach people every now and then, and I do demos for people sometimes. So what I try to convey is like, you can't fake it, like you really hear the difference. If somebody's really invested and emotionally, you hear the difference, and so when we work on like, game acting, for instance, which is a little bit different because always at the end of your game, you're going to have to do all these breaths and efforts, like death screams or whatever, So you can't be like, like,
Yeah.
you can't fake it. But you also have to save your voice, preserve your instrument. So I try to teach them, little ways to do that. And, but yeah, you're right. You definitely have to be it, feel it and be it. Yeah.
So with your class, how does someone find that? How do they get into that? Like, or how do they find you for all that?
I don't know. Well, I have it on my website, catherinecavadini.com. There's always information about that. And I usually do it once a year in January and February. And we do it on Zoom. So it's live, and I only take a certain amount of students, and the only requirement is that they have acting experience. They don't have to be a voiceover actor, but they need to have like some acting background, because we move really fast, and I do a lot of stuff. And I've had a lot of professional actors in my class, and peers take my class. I'm so like honored that they did. But anyway, so and I'm always like trying to, if I know somebody who I work with and I'm like, you don't have your demo yet, like come take my class, so that they can build the characters and work towards getting a demo, because you kind of need that to show the agent, and it'd show a casting director like, okay, this is what I can do. And then of course you always going to audition and stuff like that. And you might even, like, if you're looking for an agent, have to go in and read a bunch of characters for them live. But it's a prep for that, so that people, because a lot of times, life goes by and people think, oh, I'm going to do this. And then they just don't, because there's no forum for it. So I kind of created the class. I created the class actually because one of my dearest friends who I work with, who's an amazing voiceover actor, was like, Kath, I have this interview with this agent and I have a commercial demo, but I don't have an animation demo. And she wants to hear my animation voices. And what do I do? And I'm like, okay, come over. I know, we're going to write down the 10 voices, that you're going to do. And she's like, what do you mean? I know your voices. So we went through, we wrote the little scripts, and she read in person, and then they signed her. And then we eventually made her demo off of some of those characters. But, so, and then I was like, and I also had seen people come to my agent, is when we went into the offices, and they'd be like, hey, Natania's my agent's name at DPN. They'd be like, Natania, how do I get, like, because they have commercial actors and then they have the animation department. Not everybody's in both. And they'd be like, how do I get into the animation department? And she'd be like, oh, just bring, like 10 to 12 characters, and read them to me back to back. And I could see their faces falling, like going, oh my God, how am I going to do that? So that's why I created the class, so that it helps people. So if they are, searching for an agent, they can be able to have those 10 to 12 voices. So.
Yeah, no, that's a really awesome. That's a really awesome thing, because, in different areas, and this is one of them. It's like, there's always that person that's like, how do I get into it? How do I do this? How do I do this? So to have a place where you can learn how to do it all is great.
Well, and there's also other really great teachers out there, but mine is pretty much focused towards that end, and towards people trying to get them to that next, if they're already an actor and maybe they're already signed with an agent, to get them pushed to that next level so they can get into the animation department and start reading for those things, because it's tough, and the business is so widespread now, because there's people from all over that are reading, New York, Texas, Chicago, everybody's reading for the same things everywhere. So, but I also feel like if you're meant to get it, you're going to get it, kind of thing. Yeah. So, and if you're talented, you're going to work. But there's a lot of people out there, vying for the job.
How different is doing all of this today from even when Powerpuff Girls was happening? I mean, when you have Powerpuff Girls, it's Cartoon Network's kind of young at that point. It's Powerpuff Girls, one of the first original shows of Cartoon Network, and now, I mean, it's huge.
Well, back then, we didn't, God, when I first started, I had a beeper. Medical beeper, because I had to know, and even before that, like, we had like answering services. So I mean, that's like how old I am, from those times. I remember when my first computer was this big behemoth thing, it was like huge, so come to now. So when I first started with auditioning for that was going into either the agent or a casting director's office. And a lot of times back then, you would do your first call at your agent's office. They would send it in, and then you would hopefully get that call back, and then you could go in and meet with the casting director, and they, had more information and could give you more, some feedback and some direction. So that was, how it was done back then. Then it slowly, I think the real change was COVID. We were already starting to audition a little bit out of our homes. So most of us had some equipment, like maybe a nice mic. I had my booth already, but I'm pointing to my booth that's behind this thing.
It's not just the curtain. There's more to it.
There's right behind the curtain. So so I think COVID was the time when all of us started going, we need to up our games and have professional quality studio equipment so I finally bought like my Neumann U87 that I always wanted. I had a really nice mic before that, but I really wanted the Neumann because that's kind of the industry standard. And then, I have all sorts of mics, but anyways, and then we all kind of like a bunch of us had like a thread that we just helped each other like with equipment, and we'd figure out, and then there was also like, we're not techies. So, some people didn't even know how to record their own auditions. So I would help them, or, we'd all help each other. And this group of actors that I know that I've worked with forever. So I think that's, the people who were able to kind of morph into that world, I think started working more. And then I remember hearing people saying, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to learn that, and I was like, well, like, do you want to work? Kind of thing.
Yeah, gotta adjust.
And you do. And, I'm like old and I figured it out. So if anybody, I remember like when I first got my mic, I didn't realize that, what there's a 48, whatever it's called, 48. Wait, I'm going to see the 48V, thing. That's on the mic that you're supposed to turn on to power your mic. I was like, my mic's not working. And I literally, like, I'm searching the internet for 6 hours and I finally went, oh my God, it's the one button. It's like, so that's what we would do for each other. We'd be like, well, okay, this isn't working. And then, we'd do a job, and then, because there was Source Connect and now the Riverside. I remember, we worked on Riverside, and then you'd have Zoom going, and then you'd be doing at the beginning, we had to do backup file. They wanted a backup file of everything. So you had so many things running. I'd had my my Pro Tools running, doing the backup, trying to, label my things as I'm working, so,
Yeah.
Eventually, I did a little guest spot for, Craig McCracken's show. What is it called? On Cartoon Network, Kid Cosmic. So and that they started doing like Source Connect, and then they ended up, going, forget it. Source Connect's it's too complicated. So, but so we'd have to learn all these different, apps and different things and try to figure it all out, because none of us had, at least I hadn't even done Zoom before, so. So it was just kind of a mad dash of tech learning. And then, and that is one thing I cover in my class too, because you got to be able to do your own auditions and self-direct, and also just be able to do a job if you get the job, because you don't want to be thinking about the technical aspects of the job when you're working. You just want to be an actor. And so that's the harder part about, home studio work. So
Without giving anything away from the class, do you think today it's easier, or not easier, but do you think today someone could be successful without having the agent helping them find things? Or do you still think you should go that route if you're trying to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I've had like several students that they make a pretty good living doing non-union stuff. And matter of fact, one of them in particular, so talented, so good, but he was making a really good living doing non-union. So he and I had a talk, because he's like, and I was like, I don't know how to really give you advice, because like, if you go union, you already have like accounts, like, so it's a tough thing, but it is possible. It's hard though. I mean, that person was extremely talented. And I kind of was also like, but also if you go union, you probably could make a ton more money because you have that voice, that's going to make a lot of money. So, so it's hard, but I remember when I, became union right before I had done, a couple things, and I was like, there's that leap that you take, and you just have to trust. Like it was the leap of like, when do I quit my waitress job? Which is, I finally was like, okay, I think I'm working enough that I might make a living, but I don't know, but I'm quitting the waitress job, and then you just kind of free fall it,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think there's any right answer, but I think that some people can make that living, but I think, I mean, the real money is going to be in the union stuff,
Yeah, and the big opportunities
Hope I
are gonna
answered your
be in the
question.
Yes, you did. Yes,
I
you
went off
did.
on a little tangent there.
No. You could make a living, but the more money, more opportunities. Like if you want to really land like a big opportunities, like a Powerpuff Girls, you're gonna have to go union because that's where they're gonna look for those
Yeah.
actors and actresses.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I think there still is that divide, and even though I know, some people who do like quite a bit of non-union work, I think it's harder to make a living because you're also not protected, by the union and by the kind of this is your daily rate, you kind of have to set that. And that's hard. Like, I don't think actors are good at that. I'm not. And, I know that my agent is like my agent, I want to be hard nosed and be the one doing that so that I can just go in and do what I do, which is silly stuff, so,
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope. Yeah.
What was when did you learn, or what was your feeling when Powerpuff Girls got the reboot green light?
We don't talk about that. Just kidding. It was, I try not to go into it too much because I don't want to sound like one of those. But it's just weird because I will go into it in this respect. I don't fault the young girls who are doing the roles because they're actors and they're just trying to get a job. So good for them. But they did only replace the three of us, the three girls. They kept everybody else. And so it's just a little weird. I heard that they were going to maybe try to do some on-camera stuff and they thought we were old or whatever, and they wanted younger people. But that didn't end up really happening. So, and luckily a lot of our fans really still love us and love the original show. So, so that's the cool thing. And there are a lot of people that like both shows, so, but yeah, it was a pretty much, as I think Tara put, a stab to the heart.
Yeah.
Considering, we still can all of us can do the voices, and and luckily we're all still working, and we make our livings doing this still, even without the Powerpuff Girls. But that was kind of a bummer.
If it makes you feel any better, that one didn't do too well.
I mean, that is the truth of it. And, Hollywood's a hard business, and it's hard for women to get older. I mean, it seems like it's easier for men to be accepted to go older, and to age. But, it's just people always comment on, the aging of women. I notice. I don't notice it as much, people commenting on the aging of men. And, I guess maybe that's human nature, but it's an unfortunate thing that women have to deal with,
Yeah, especially when I think about it, like when you think of animation, there are a lot of big female leads that you do hear about or see. Like you bring up Tara a lot, and Nancy Cartwright and all them. But I feel like when you're seeing a reboot or you're seeing nostalgia or something like that, it is very male dominated, and that is pretty unfortunate because there's a lot of talented people across the board.
Yeah. And I think we'll just see how all this shakes out.
Yeah.
With all of the political stuff and everything that's going on, we'll see. But I mean, that's the thing that's so, like, I don't even know if our show would fly. Like, I don't know if you could do Powerpuff Girls because there were so many things that maybe wouldn't be PC today,
I have pretty strong opinions with reboots, and that's just don't do it. Like, just don't do reboots. Like,
right.
Animation, like even to this day, I love animation. I love cartoons. I love all that stuff. And something that was really good doesn't need to be brought back. There are occasionally times reboots to, like, Animaniacs came back to Hulu, and it was solid. It was really good. I enjoyed when they rebooted that. But like for 9 times out of 10, you just sit there and you're like, why did they do that? Like, why
I know,
did
and
they
then
have
you're
to do that?
comparing. It puts the comparing, right?
Yeah.
And now Tom Kane's gone, so how could we possibly do it without him? So I don't know if we did, because there was talk about, and people asked me because Craig had said, I think it was 2 years ago or something. He said something about doing a reboot, and I haven't heard anything since, and I don't know
Yeah.
that that's going to happen. It doesn't seem very likely. So
Yeah.
I think the more likely thing is if they ever could get the on-camera thing off the ground, but they'd have to change it. I think the original one didn't work because they made it too dark, maybe.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, like I said, reboots, there's no need for them. They don't usually do successful at all in any aspect, whether it's live action, movies. We already know they've rebooted a ton of movies. I can go all day about the live action remakes of Disney films, but we don't have enough time to go into those.
No, but it's true. And I think part of the reason too they stopped doing our show was because they all were starting to do other shows, and they're kind of losing material. Like they were like trying to figure out like what's our next episode going to be about, So I think it was its time to go. You know,
there's a reason it ends, right? Like it's time for.
But then, of course, they did do the reboots.
yeah. But again, look how that turned out. Like, it's not like it stayed on forever. It lasted a couple of years. People then were like, "Why did they do this?" And then it moves on. I feel that way about a lot of stuff. Like I love the late '90s, early 2000s animation. That's I grew up with a lot of that stuff, but I also like that second era of Cartoon Network, the regular shows, Adventure Times, like those.
Oh yeah,
those ones
Adventure
as well.
Time's great. Yeah,
those are amazing. And Adventure Time, it feels like every couple of years they're doing these like 4-episode reboots. They're talking about another one again. It's like you could leave it. It was really good. Like you don't have to keep bringing it back. But I understand at the same time, like.
Yeah.
You go to something like a convention or you go to online forums and that all people talk about. There are shows that people still to this day talk about that have been off the air for 10, 15, 20 years saying like, man, it'd be great if they brought it back. But I feel like nobody learns when they do bring it back. It just doesn't usually hit the same as it did back then for many different reasons, whether it didn't fit in that era or like nostalgia definitely gives you a high when remembering, right? Like things could be great. Like I go back and watch stuff like Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Great Adventures of Billy and Mandy, all those shows. I still enjoy them, but there are certain cartoons. I'm not going to call them out here, but there are certain ones that you go back and you're like, oh, I felt like this was much better when I was watching it. But it's just because that was the time period you were in, right? Like that was the time you were in. Same with TV shows. There's a lot of TV shows
I didn't
live
think about
action
the era
that
thing though. You're right. I mean, we do. Things have shifted so much now.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if it would work. It wouldn't work the way it was. So I don't
it wouldn't
know how
work
they
the
would.
way it was.
Yeah,
it would have to be so changed and so different to fit into today's era. A great example of it is Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go, right? Teen Titans Go is very successful, but comparing the two shows is almost impossible because they're two completely different shows.
Yeah.
One was dark, one was edgy, one was very comic driven. The other one is more light and humorous and more TV driven. But you have to do something like that's a dramatic change between the two. That's not just like we're going to reboot this and they rebooted it and then changed the whole thing. That's why the animation's different. Everything's different because it's a different show. So if you bring something like Powerpuff Girls, like which was lighthearted but also had dark moments, like you're not going to be able to do that as much. It'd probably have to be more lighthearted. And then on top of all that, most of these are coming back because of streaming. Like they want people to get on Paramount Plus or HBO Max or whatever it's on now. So you bring these back, try to draw up the nostalgia and hope it hits. But I mean, they reboot that, Rugrats, all this stuff, and all of them. You're just like, what are we doing? Like we don't need to do that. They've talked about reboots of speaking of Ed, Edd n Eddy a little earlier in it. Like how do you redo that? It was all hand drawn. It was all cell drawn. How do you reboot that in today's era? Like it wouldn't feel the same.
Yeah. It's true. And I like the stuff I'm doing now. I'm doing all sorts of different things, so and I kind of like I'm doing more dramatic roles sometimes, and because at one point I was just known as like a kid voice, so for me, I'm okay with moving on with my life, I do, I miss seeing the girls, but now that we do some Comic-Cons together, it's fun, but yeah, I mean, I'm okay. Like, I know sometimes people are like, I'm so sorry that you're not doing that show anymore. And I'm like, that's all I do is I do voiceover. I work for a
Yeah.
living, every day.
Well, yeah,
So.
I didn't listen. I didn't say I'm so sorry because you're extremely successful at what you do, whether it's you're in the reboot or not. You're very successful at what you do, and you're continuing to be successful.
But I mean, I'm
at
just
what you
saying
do.
sometimes people,
Yeah.
they think
No, I'm saying that's why I
I'm
didn't
just
do
sitting
it.
at home like knitting or something.
That's what I mean. Like people think like, oh, you're not in the reboot. You have nothing. It's like, that's not true. It's like way different than that. You have all these different things you do. You have the classes you do. You're going and you're seeing people at the Comic Cons all the time. Like you have moved
Well,
on.
I just did. I like
more
just
than Cartoon
my
Network.
first narration job, like as an adult with a big girl, with my big girl voice, called Condor Canyon. I've been doing some audiobooks, a series of 4 audiobooks that I'm excited about. And that's a hard job. I have to say that's one of the hardest voiceover jobs I've ever done, because you're doing every single voice in there, and plus you're doing all the men voices, which I'm not used to doing. So that's been really kind of a fun challenge. And then, and that's like it's my friend's sister wrote the series. It's Primogenitor series that's going to be out, and it all takes place on Mars and stuff. So it's all sci-fi, which I love sci-fi. Her name is Cherie Fords. C4s. So that will be out pretty soon. And then, I do a lot of games and stuff like that. So, I'm always keeping busy.
Yeah, we're going to have you back on in the future because we didn't talk about any of that. We didn't talk about your love for baseball, basketball. You sent me all this stuff about archery, jewelry. We didn't talk about any of it. But,
my whole family's archers. Yeah,
we'll have to have you back on in the future to talk about all this other stuff that we didn't get to.
I know we were
going to
talk about sports because you love sports. So,
I do love sports.
Yeah,
I do love sports.
You've got that's what we talked about. Sides to you.
Yeah, we talked about that at the thing. I think I was telling you something about baseball. And you're like, oh, I love baseball, and I was like,
my
mark that down.
Boyfriend, my husband doesn't like me to bring it up, but my very first boyfriend was an amazing baseball player, and he got signed with the St. Louis Cardinals, but then got an injury. But anyway, so I went to many a baseball game when I was in my teens and growing up. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to have you back soon so we can talk about all that. You're coming up at NostalgiaCon and Hall of Heroes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the places you're coming up at?
I think it's June 19th and 20th. I think those are the dates.
Yep,
yeah, June 19th and 20th. I'll be at NostalgiaCon in Anaheim. And then, do you have the dates for the October?
October 2nd through 4th, NostalgiaCon in Houston, Texas.
That will be actually, I think all 3 of the Powerpuff Girls will be there. But people can always go to my website, catherinecavadini.com, and I always have everything either on my blog or, anywhere that I'm appearing or whatever I'm doing, whatever new thing is out is on there. So,
and then I have one more for you. You have a charity event, Powerpuff Girls Benefit, an Evening of Heroes, November 7th, 6 to 9 at the Alex Theater.
Yeah, they just set that, and I think Craig McCracken's going to be there, and the three of us girls are going to be there. Tara Strong, E.G. Daly, and myself. So, and I think Lauren might be there too. Lauren, Craig's wife. So I'm not sure who else, but I think that's who I heard for that. And that's Eric Bauza's project. He does these charity events, that I guess have been really successful, and I really adore him. We ended up doing some people I meet not on the job, but like at like an interview or situation, So I met Eric at one of those at I guess it was LSU. We did this little panel for the students there. So anyway, he's a really amazingly talented guy. So
she's coming near you. Go check her out. She's amazing. Go up, say hi, and she'll talk your ear off like she did me probably. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for joining us. Thank you, Matt, for joining us. Thank you all for being here. Remember, you could find us at Mad Props Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky as well. We are now on Blue Sky. You can find us all those places. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. The panel will be coming out very soon. A mic'd up going through Comic Palooza is coming out very soon. Not going to want to miss that. So subscribe to us on YouTube. We also have a bunch of clips coming out. So you want to subscribe to find us there. You can also subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Apple Podcasts is the one we push the most. We also have Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever you listen on. You can find us anywhere you want. So go find us wherever you want. If you want, you can sign up for our newsletter, Mad Props newsletter. It goes out probably once a month. We haven't really set the whole thing up, but it goes out once a month. It'll have highlight a guest or multiple guests. And you can find everything you want to find there. There's also going to be some giveaways and all that kind of stuff. So sign up for the newsletter as well if you'd like to. Sign up for the Discord. There's a Discord down in the description. Going to want to get on the Discord because we are going to announce guests in there. We're going to allow questions for guests in there. We're going to do fan questions from the Discord itself. You can also get updates on every episode when it comes out, every clip when it comes out. Also, sketching up that we went before this episode is all in the Discord. So go find that in the description. Come on to the Discord. I'm still building it out, but I would love to have you there if you're listening. Go to that Discord. All right, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. We'll see you next time. We got big episodes coming up, so you're not going to want to miss it. Thank you for watching Mad Props. See you later. Deuces. Bye-bye.